So Yogi Bhai, thanks for making the time to have this conversation with us today.
Thank you for
You've had a bit of a fun journey. We've known each other since maybe we were 2 or 3 years old, but you've had a very interesting life, teaching at Columbia, lecturing at universities around the world, and all along the way, I think you've also, from whatever I've seen, had a very unique experience, of living a life with Pramukh Swami Maharaj, which you've also put into a book in Love at Ease. But today, I really was eager to talk to you for something you've done more recently. So 2024, you got your PhD thesis. Congratulations. And but in that
took
topic,
a lifetime.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. But so we did that, and you did that, and it was about the Paramhansas and their bhakti poetry, if I understand that right. And that's something that I was very curious to know about, because the only stuff that I know about bhajans and kirtans is what I've heard in Sabha. And I haven't really been able to go beyond that in my education. So I was really eager to have you here. So I'm happy you had the time today. But I do want to start off right away with that thesis in terms of you're a journalism person, you're speaking, at CBS New York, you're doing all of that. How does that pivot into bhakti poetry and doing this PhD?
Probably 20 years ago, 18, 19 years ago.
Really a lifetime, like you said.
Really, a lifetime ago, at least a generation. When I was on air, I had a conversation with my guru, His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj. And he didn't specifically tell me to go study in the academy. But what he said to me was quite fascinating when you think of the sort of broad-minded vision that gurus in general have for their disciples. Pramukh Swami Maharaj said to me, Yogi, everyone does something for themselves, their families, their own careers, things that help their pratishta is the word he used.
Your standing.
Fame, standing, position. But what are we doing to give back to society? That is the question I want you to ask yourself. And so I thought in my mind, maybe he's asking me to be a monk. Maybe he's asking me to give back by doing some humanitarian service of sorts. And I think what he pointed at was education. He said, what do you know about Hinduism? What do you know about the Swaminarayan Sampraday? And how can then, after educating yourself, how can you share that with our community, the broader Hindu community, and those who are curious about engaging with Hinduism and the Swaminarayan Sampraday? And as you know, there are millions who are. If you just think of all of the Swaminarayan mandirs around the world, specifically BAPS mandirs, and you think of how many visitors we have, that means those people are curious to know more about Hinduism and more specifically the Swaminarayan Sampraday. And what are we doing to share important aspects and facets of our past, of our present, of our music and literature, and some of our guiding principles with them is what I got from my conversation with Pramukh Swami Maharaj.
This is like 2004, 5?
Right about that time. About that time. I was on air 4, 5, 6 around that time. So when I say on air, I was at CBS. And so that was the time when I made the shift. I went to Columbia University, sat in on a course with my academic guruji, John Stratton Hawley, who's more popularly known as Jack Hawley. And Jack Hawley Sahib, I sat in on a course. I remember it was right up my alley. It was called North Indian Bhakti Texts.
That's something they teach at Columbia?
At Columbia, yeah.
See, these are things we don't know, that this sort of stuff is in in kind of the zeitgeist, or at least in academia already, yeah?
Yeah, and quite popular. That course. We read, and in my case sang, Surdas Ji's pads, Kabir Ji's pads, Ravidas Ji's pads, Mirabai's pads, etc., etc., etc. And I think that's when it clicked for me, and I said, this is what I wanted to do. Then came up the conversation about what it is that I would study, right? Because you have to start off with a broad understanding of world religions, Hinduism, and then hone in on this one particular topic that you really want to get your PhD So we all speak Gujarati, so you'll understand this joke that a bunch of my friends, especially here in India, have. PhD ni khichdi karwani chahiye, you know. So what is that one topic that you really want to dive into? And I think that one course with Jack Hawley Sahib really made me start thinking about the Swaminarayan Sampraday and the sort of treasure, the trove of bhakti pads that we have.
Before we get too far at the buds, I want to take you back a second.
Okay.
So we can kind of maybe wrap up the diversity part.
Okay.
Not that there's such a thing as wrapping it up.
Yeah.
But we had started this whole section about diversity by talking about how even the four poets that you had chosen were diverse. Premanand Swami is the poet's poet, very structured and traditional in a charan tradition. And you said for foremost poets and educators, and then performers in a second kind of level. And whereas you said Premanand Swami is more of the musician and his voice and other instruments are his instruments, poetry to him was the second thing, and that's why sometimes maybe he would break meter and do those things. Muktanand Swami,
and very diverse as a musician.
And
he was singing
languages,
ragas, different languages, but also different genres. So if you think of ragas, Drupad, Khayal, we won't get into all of this, but different genres of classical, all the way down to folk. And in folkma, the one thing that we should mention are his garbis. Garbis, which are usually pads that can be sung and then repeated by a larger audience. And those garbis became so popular in the Sampraday and outside of the Sampraday. In fact, Dalpat Ramji, who was celebrated by many in Gujarat as the sort of father of modern literature, Gujarati modern literature, he had said that once he heard Premanand Swami sing a garbi and it was so effective. It was about Maharaj's Dhamagaman, so he's reverting to Akshardham, and he goes, and so many years, I think 11 or 12 years after Maharaj Dhamma gaya, tyare Premanand Swami gata tha, and that environment એટલું charged થઈ ગયું that many people started crying, અમુક લોકો unconscious થઈ ગયા. So there was this power in his music. So this power in the words, but also in the performance of those words. So that's how diverse Preman.
I mean, we could go on for Preman for a while because I love him as a poet as well. But then you said Muktanand Swami and Nishkulanand Swami. These were the four. So these two you've gone through. How do you categorize Muktanand Swami and Nishkulanand Swami?
So Muktanand Swami was, from what we understand, and I have a lot more work left to do on Muktanand Swami, I admit that first and foremost, but Muktanand Swami was raised among Shaivas. In fact, one of my colleagues who has written about this, Professor Arun Brahmbhatt, often talks about the sort of influence of Kashmiri Shaivism on Narsi Mehta, and then later, if I understand correctly, if I recall correctly, on Muktanand Swami as well. So this lasting effect of being raised in a Shaiva background, which is very different from a Vaishnava background. And I really just don't have the time to get into that.
Yeah, sure.
But even Hinduism was so diverse at the time, right? If you think of Vaishnavism and the sort of great overall bhakti of Vishnu and the avatars of Vishnuji, Vishnu Bhagwan and Krishna Bhagwan, etc. on that one side, Shaivism, and
then Shaktism,
and Shaktism, and the Mataji and the goddess worship on that side, and how diverse all three of them were in terms of language, theology, cultural repertoire, practice, dietary habits. We can keep going on and on and on.
Yeah.
And yet, amidst all of that, in that diversity that Muktanand Swami had from his Shaiva and Shakta background, some influence from his interactions with Jains as well, etc. And all of that, Muktanand Swami was able to come to Gujarat, become Ramanand Swami, who was Bhagwan Swaminarayan's guru, as we know, his Shishya, and then being the senior disciple of Ramanand Swami, then accepting Bhagwan Swaminarayan as his, not just his guru, because Ramanand Swami was his guru, but his Ishtadev, right? This is another thing we forget. Most of these people were so accomplished, especially when you think of Muktanand Swami and Brahmanand Swami, before ever having met Bhagwan Swaminarayan, were so accomplished. And then to accept Bhagwan Swaminarayan as their Ishtadeva, and we'll get into what that means, like not just a spiritual master, but as the supreme being, supreme divine being, Purna Purushottam Narayan, Parabrahman. And I think to be able to do that, and while doing that, Muktanand Swami was also writing in 5 or 6 different languages, his poetry. Muktanand Swami was also writing in various genres. Muktanand Swami was a great dancer. So Muktanand Swami, there's a very, I forget exactly which Vat text, was it Prasadan Swami's Vatos, where Muktanand Swami એમના પગેથી નૃત્ય કરતા કરતા, dance કરતા કરતા, he was able to draw a peacock. So you just imagine the immense amounts of and diverse amounts of talent that these Paramansas had. And so that was Muktanand Swami with the remnants of these different other religious and sectarian communities. And then finally, Nishkulanand Swami.
Also multi-talented, carpenter, and meets Goentan Swami at a young age. They're doing goshti from their original Sampraday, then becomes a sadhu through a journey. What's his kind of musical pedigree as you put them in this like set of four?
I would describe Nishkulanand Swami, and it's so hard to say in black and white.
Yeah, we don't pigeonhole them. Yeah.
No, because you can't.
You can't.
Right? And we'll get into that when we talk.
Like you're talking about Muktanand Swami's dancing, and you've got Premanand Swami who's like speaking to the royal courts to build these mandirs and doing all these things.
And the Nawabs, so the Muslim rulers in Junagadh and Mangalore. But so we're talking about Nishkulanand Swami. The one thing that hits me about Nishkulanand Swami was that he was much older than Premanand Swami. He had seen life before he became a renunciant. Sadhuni Diksha lidhi emne. Pehla he had seen life. And he says it best in a pad that's attributed to him, in which he talks about gare gada ata. At that time, gada, like carts, badad hata, right? Because go dhan at that time. If you had cows and bulls, you had dhan, or you had wealth at the time, in that sort of agrarian society mercantile society that we lived in. So he said, Ke e hatu mari pase. I had a lot of land on which there was farming happening. So Nishkulanand Swami himself કહે છે કે મારી પાસે આટલું 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 હતું, એ મૂકીને પછી મેં ભગવાન સ્વામિનારાયણના હાથે દીક્ષા લીધી. And so he was a man he was a worldly man, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He was married. He had kids. He left all of that aside. We'll get to how he leaves that aside. And then after taking Diksha, he becomes a Tyagi's Tyagi. You know how we said Brahmanand Swami was a poet's poet?
Yeah.
A Tyagi's Tyagi. What do I mean by that? Again, we go back to his pads. Nishkulanand Swami's memory is closely tied to the dusty, sleepy village of Dholera today. I think there's this big push right now to make Dholera into this smart city, and the current dispensation government is working on that, has been working on it for a while. But for as long as one can remember it over the last 200, 300, 400...
Yeah, even when we've gone let's say a decade ago to Dholera, or 5 years ago.
And there's a beautiful mandir there now. The current administration is working on this master plan. And I truly encourage everyone to go see Dholera. That's when you truly realize Nishkulanand Swami's Mahima, for several reasons. You look at the town, and then you see the stark difference that the mandir is and has become.
The gate that he's carved with his own hands.
Yeah.
And those things.
The kaman.
Yeah.
The kaman is the archway. And now I think it's gold plated. So that particular kaman stands out.
Okay,
and so you know, Nishkulanand Swami Prasadini kaman. So I think those are the kinds of things that I would encourage people to go see. If you want to see that, a quick aside, if you want to see something like that material about Brahmanand Swami, Muri and Bhuj, I would recommend. 2 places where his disciple Parampara, and Junagadh. Though a lot of Junagadh was lost in there was a fire in the Haveli. So a lot of his texts and his instruments were lost in that. But Muri and Bhuj are great places to go visit. So my point is that Nishkulanand Swami went from being a worldly man to a Tyagi.
Extreme renunciate.
And then I think the one thing that all of us, especially those of us who are interested in history, have to salute him for, was that he was a true historian, a true record.
In the vernacular.
So
it's like accessible to the everyman, right? To be able to read that history themselves. The thing about Nishkulanand Swami that I want to kind of hear from you is did he write before? Is there poetry before he becomes a sadhu?
It's a good question. Nothing that can be that we can be traced back and to sort of say record che Nishkulanand Swami
There's no
pehla lagta."
attributed like book or this or that to him from before. And yet as soon as he becomes a Tyagi and is joining all this, amongst all of his renunciation, this art, this vibrancy of art lives both in through his craftsmanship and also through this poetry. I think that's also interesting. Usually when people think of, the Tyagi's Tyagi, it's somebody sitting in a cave or sitting in a mountain or sitting in, the desert, just in stark meditation. But here's a person who has extreme simplicity. And sometimes I want to move to this topic a little bit later about, the categories we'll put people in. But it's like, if you put them in the category of Tyagi and the Tyagi's Tyagi, then you're thinking, as famously, Dudh na pive. He was like, he was taking extreme vows of simplicity.
Let me tell you what some of those vows
and yet
are.
Vibrancy of life in terms of art is just as rich.
Exactly. So this balance between renunciation and the aesthetic, right? Appreciating that. And in fact, one of the Vachanamrits that Bhagwan Swaminarayan, the number is escaping my memory. Actually, no. Gunatyan Swamini Vatoma, one of the references to Nishkulanand Swami is not just for his Tyag and Vairagya. But Gunatyan Swami said that Nishkulanand Swami jevo hetne prem Bhagwan Swaminarayan mate jo koine me atyar sudhi joya nathi. So this balance of being able to let go, but also to love. And I think that is the beauty of bhakti, right? But keva tyagi hata Nishkulanand Swami, if I can give you some examples. Ke jare Bhagwan Swaminarayan em kidhu ke ધોલેરાનું મંદિર બની ગયું છે ને હવે ત્યાંનું મહંતાઈ તમને સોંપવી છે. We want to make you the mahant of Dholera.
Ran away.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gone.
Right? And even when that conversation was had for whether to give that to him in Gadada or whatnot as well. And then he says in one of his pads that I want future sadhus and my disciples to know ke mahantai mein kem lidhi che. And he describes what kind of a gam Dholera is. If you don't mind, I just want to quickly pull it up. And in it, he goes, don't for a second think that I did this because I want to become
power.
And I want to become some big place because seje upvas થાય એવી જગ્યા છે. seje vairagya upje એવી જગ્યા. Dholera really is that dusty, sleepy town we were talking about, at least.
Water is rare. Water is scarce there, right? There's no large amounts of agricultural produce per se. Maybe one or two pak that you're growing there, but you're not getting like 4 types of vegetables in your home garden that's being grown on a regular basis.
Certainly not.
So I feel like, if we look at this first section of what we've talked about, what I'm taking away from that first section is that the times were such that a variety of people were coming to Gujarat. In that kind of ecosystem, Bhagwan Swaminarayan establishes the fellowship, and we kind of appreciate what established means. It's not just coming and planting a flag, but it's saying, building that sense of community by instructing people to write books and do things in the vernacular as well as in Sanskrit and so many other languages.
And along with that, beliefs, practices, festivals, right? Gadada Pratham 3, where Maharaj talks about Ame Samaya Kem Kariye che.
To bring people together, right? So he's actively kind of creating this community, and in his own time, he's allowing a lot of diversity within that community. So, and a diversity, to be very clear about that, is that the philosophical principles are uniform, right? Everybody believes in the same tattva gnan, let's say, that Bhagwan Swaminarayan is putting out. Everyone is the Ishtadev Bhavna, and those things are all there. But around that, because each of those people come from different backgrounds, not just geographically, but even from different faith traditions. Like you said, you've got Shaiv tradition people like Magnidam and others who are coming in. You've got Shakta tradition people, you've got Vaishnav tradition people. And they're all kind of coalescing around Bhagwan Swaminarayan and seeing him as the Ishtadev in that own lifetime. Bishop Haber famously mentioned this in his diary, that Bhagwan Swaminarayan travels. And in that travel, there's a diversity of people around him. Because he probably saw Miyaji and Ratanji and all these people from different backgrounds all being there together. So Maharaj has, in a very active way, created a diverse community. And I think that is a lesson I take strongly, because I think it identifies this idea that there can be people who share values, that share philosophy, that share praxis, and still have quite a bit of diversity. Sometimes in our own heads maybe, we start imagining that everybody in satsang is the same, or everybody's likes and dislikes and everybody's behavior, because we're trying to go to the same ideal, should be uniform.
Ji.
But that's not true. There's a lot of diversity that is welcomed by Maharaj himself in his time, and is welcome today as well, and exists today if we're just open enough to receive it, interact with it, and kind of take it as a part of our faith.